I'm listening to the Best of the Supremes, but I've just had a session with my favourite thrash metal, heavy metal band of all time, SLAYER. I think what I have to say is that it's very hard to talk about Slayer while you're listening to the Supremes. I've never really heard much of Franz Schubert, but I bought this the other day at a thrift shop, and his Sinfonia number 8, Incompiuta, reminded me of Slayer. And I'm sure Schubert was around in the sorry if I'm shouting, but whenever I talk about Slayer, I'm sure he wrote this in the 1830s or 40s. And when I heard Franz Schubert yesterday, I thought, hang on. Now, there was Beethoven basically invented heavy metal, and then there was Wagner. But there was in between, there's Schubert. And when I heard it, I thought, this is like Slayer without, anyway. Yeah, it's a bit of this is what I would call dessert. I've just had the main course, Slayer. I fucking love Slayer. Okay. Now, I bought Show No Mercy in 1983 on an impulse. This album is unbelievably great. Unbelievable. Yeah. They already had their sound early. Before this was the Haunting the Chapel EP, which I never have owned, but there are tracks off the River's Edge soundtrack. Captor of Sin, Evil Has No Boundaries, and Tormentor. I think they're on the Haunting the Chapel EP. Slayer are a very, very important band to me. In the 1980s, the two bands that really, really got me through the 80s were Husker Du and Slayer. So Show No Mercy and Haunting the Chapel. Okay. Now I've had a couple of their albums which for some reason I didn't get into at the time. Or one, I can't remember. Cut the crap, silly Billy. What's this all about? What was their second album? That's the one I haven't got. Okay. Now, at the same time I bought Show No Mercy, Voivod! War and Pain. A bunch of French Canadians. Wow. Wow. They were right up there with Show No Mercy. Came out about the same time. The third album, Slayer. I think, don't get me wrong, but I think it's Rain in Blood. This is lauded as their greatest album. I disagree. It's speed speed thrash of the highest order, but it doesn't stay in the. It sort of just flies past so quickly that nothing sticks. It's a great album. Some people call this their greatest. I'm not ranking them. It's a great album. That's all I'll say. What I'm aiming at doing here is getting towards. Okay, we'll go. I have had other Slayers CDs, but they sort of lost the plot by the late 90s for sure. But this one, Diabolicus in Musica, is actually extremely good. What I was trying to say was that Schubert and Slayer, oh, Christ, I love this. Yeah, I played this a few times recently, and I've reassessed it. It was when they were moving into the 90s, and they started to modernise their music. And at the time, I thought, but actually, it's probably the last great album they made. All right, I better hurry up. Dave Lombardo on drums. Holy crap, what? Tom Araya on vocals and lyrics. And the two guitarists, they just do the same, just the same thing over and over. But that's what classical music is. Schubert does it. All right, hurry up. And to finish up, this was my all-time favourite Slayer album. South of Heaven. In some ways, it still is. And and also, please excuse me. This is Seasons in the Abyss. Now, I've seen rankings where this is number one. And that is number one. But very few where this is number one. And yet, this one was my number one. This is like mid to late 80s for a long, long time. And I've got to give points to Rick Rubin at Def Jam for the production. But in my old age, after a quarter of a century or more, South of Heaven and Show No Mercy was replaced by South of Heaven. South of Heaven reigns supreme. And I've owned this forever and ever. And I always think I've never heard it until I play it. And I know I've played it a lot. And I've seen the reviews on this. I do believe this is their most consistent. It's the most Slayer album. It's the most Slayer album of all time. Seasons in the Abyss. 10:44. Good time to stop.